everyone and welcome to my Cinderella reading vlog. So for this week I am going to be reading two Cinderella books. These are Cinderella Is Dead and All the Ever Afters. This one, Cinderella Is Dead, is focusing on Cinderella after, Cinderella's died actually, and this is focusing on the society built afterwards, and this one, All the Ever Afters, is actually focusing on the evil stepmother from Cinderella. What I'm going to be doing is trying to read these two books over the next 10 days and tell you about what I think about them, and also vlog my experience of going to see Cinderella in the West End, because I'm going to be seeing it this Saturday. It has now been confirmed I'm going in part of the socially distanced section, and I cannot wait. So what I thought I'd do is vlog the experience, because fingers crossed I'll also be going on a bit of a shopping trip and all the rest of it, and I just thought it'd be a fun experience to vlog. So yeah, I'm going to be starting with Cinderella Is Dead, and I'm really excited. I have heard mixed things about this, but I am excited to read it anyway, so let's get into it. So I am currently 3 chapters in, which is 28 pages, and I've got to admit, very good start. I'm quite liking this sense of dread through it, and this very subtle world building in terms of like the fact that you've got all of these rules and everyone's hiding the fact that they are scared of the ball and things like this. Definitely a very good start. I've got to admit, I do not mind this idea that maybe Sophia is in love with Evie at the moment, but we'll see how that goes, because obviously romance for me is iffy. So I'm now up to chapter 13, which is 125 pages, and I've got to admit, I am enjoying this and I am finding it a very quick read, but at the same time I'm finding it slightly naive, I guess, because I feel like it's very quick paced, which I quite like, but it's like how she meets Luke, finds out Luke's gay, and doesn't immediately go, wait a minute, why don't the two of us like choose each other and then we can be in a marriage of convenience kind of thing. And it takes until the night of, and for him to turn up and be like, we can get married, for her to realise this. And it's like, oh yeah, we can escape kind of thing. And it just feels slightly naive as well, in like how she trusts people, like Constance, who she's just met. It feels like she is a little bit naive, and the whole thing just feels slightly naive. That's what I'm getting at. It just feels naive. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's slightly annoying me because it does feel naive, as I keep on saying, but I'm still enjoying it, and I do appreciate that it's a very quick read though. And I mean, I am only that far in, and I mean, this book is, how long is this book? 300 and, well, if I lose out the acknowledgements, 385 pages, so I am about a third of the way through, I think. Yeah, about a third of the way through, so yeah, I am enjoying it, I've got to admit. Do appreciate it's a very quick read, but at the moment, slight naivety that's slightly grating. So it's a new day and I've just read chapter 13, and we've just discovered Liv's body, and I've got to admit, I'm not hit with it. It feels very much, and I've looked on Goodreads and a lot of people are saying this, that it feels more telling than showing. So we're told that like she feels horrified and stuff like this, but I don't really feel it. And I think that's my problem, is the fact that a lot of this is telling and not showing. The same way how like when her father kicks her out, stuff like this, it's sort of like we got the dialogue in there and little flashes of like telling of the emotions, but I didn't really feel it. So I think that's my problem at the moment. That being said though, I am still reasonably enjoying this. I am enjoying the twist on it, and I am enjoying this idea of smashing the patriarchy. I'm just a little iffy on the telling not showing thing at the moment. So I've now just gone to chapter 23, which is page 222, and we've just got through the part where the fairy godmother has just explained like what happened with the prince and why Cinderella went to the ball. And am I the only one thinking that was blatantly obvious, that Cinderella went to the ball to kill the prince? Like, that was obvious to me, because he'd killed her mum and her dad. It was like, obviously she went to kill him, you know, and stuff like this. I've got to admit, it's a good plot twist in the idea that obviously the prince was evil all along, and that the fairy godmother was helping him. I do like that twist on it, I've got to admit. But for me personally, some of this is too blatantly obvious in terms of like why Cinderella went to the ball and things like this. It's just a tad bit too obvious. And personally, I'd like to explore more of why Prince Charming is like he is and why. Like, obviously we get the whole, oh, he's power hungry thing, but I'd prefer just a little bit more of an explanation on that, I guess you could say, and sort of a bit more of a, like, oh, this is why he's doing this, because of XYZ reasons, and we're not really getting that. So at the moment I feel like this could have been a few chapters longer just to explore these kinds of things, and maybe to get rid of some of the naivety as well of the characters. And I mean, obviously they are going to be semi-naive, because I don't think the women even go to school. There's no mention of women going to school in this, but obviously they've been raised in this society that's very, very patriarchal and very much like they're just there to be wives and servants and mothers, and that's it. So you can kind of get why they are naive, but at the same time they are still very painfully naive, and it's like, of course most of the Cinderella story wasn't true. And I get that obviously having been raised with that idea you're going to believe it, but with these characters specifically, with like Sophia, who has spent her entire life, well, not her entire life, but a lot of her life going against the rules, or trying to go against the rules, and saying that all of this is wrong. And obviously as well, Constance, who has been raised with the idea that she is obviously the descendant of the stepsisters and stuff like this. It's like, surely you would have believed that the story was a lie in the first place, kind of thing. And also the fact that they're falling in love with each other, but it's literally only been like, well, it's been about a week at this point, and they're already falling in love with each other, despite the fact that Sophia has been in love with Evie, or Erin, her friend, for like years now. She's been madly in love with her for years, but she seems to just have forgotten this entirely. Like, she saw her friend at the market and saw that she'd been beaten by Edward, and obviously she was angry about that, but she just seems to have mainly forgotten about Evie, or her friend anyway. And Liv, it's like, you've just seen your best friend dead and stuff like this, and you've gone through horrendous things, but you're still focusing on possibly falling for this girl. And I'm like, I would have preferred that to have been like explored maybe further on. I'm thinking actually maybe this would have worked better as a duology, so this could have had more of an expansive look at everything and developed the relationship more slowly, and sort of explored Sophia's relationship with everybody and things like this. I think at the moment I'm thinking this would have worked better as a duology. I'm thinking that would have helped. I don't know. I'm having mixed feelings about this all over. So I've just finished Cinderella Is Dead, and I think that this would be a very good sort of bridge book between middle grade and YA, in the sense that it's good, but I feel like it's really quite predictable, so I do think it worked well for a younger audience. That being said, I did enjoy the characters a fair amount, and I did enjoy like the fact that we are focusing on like Cinderella and the kingdom after she's died, and sort of the evils of men, and like how men can be very, very cruel to women and things like this. I did enjoy that aspect of it, and like the girl power and the fighting back aspect. But I've got to admit, I sensed all of the plot twists apart from the final one. I was not exactly pleased with how many characters were forgotten after they were left behind in the story. I also wasn't a fan of how naive the characters were. Like, I can understand it in the sense that obviously they've been raised with this idea of Cinderella and that story and everything else, but they were incredibly naive in a lot of ways. So like I said, I guessed a lot of the plot twists and what the king was doing and all the rest of it. So in that sense, it was not my favourite. So I would say that this is a good book for maybe like 13-14 year olds who are just getting into YA, and maybe not people my age, which is 25, but then again I am 25, so in that sense it could just be that I've read enough books over the years now that I can sort of see these things. I don't know, but either way it was enjoyable in its sense, but I did have a few problems with it, so I'm going to give it 3 stars. Now I'm going to have a quick break, and then I'm going to start to read all the ever afters. I'm probably not going to be able to finish this before I see Cinderella itself, but I am hoping, because it's only 376 pages, that I'm going to get through it reasonably quickly, because I did get through this one in like 2 days technically. So I'm hoping that the same is going to be said for this, and that I'm going to enjoy this one more. And this one is actually specifically focusing on the evil stepmother of Cinderella, so this is sort of like her story, essentially. It's her origin story, so I'm very excited to read this one. But first, lunch. Seeing Cinderella, and I had the greatest time watching this musical. Honestly, this musical has beaten Wicked, and I didn't think it was possible to beat Wicked in my affections, but Cinderella's done it. It's just a combination of the story, the music, Cinderella's sense of style, everything. It just really spoke to me in a lot of ways, and it just worked so well for me, quite frankly. It's really, really funny in places. The story takes the Cinderella story and then twists it, so I'm sliding down a bit, there we go. It twists it, so you've got more, like, it makes it more original in places, and even though it follows like the beat of the story, there's still some really interesting twists on it, and like how they've modernised it in places. The cast is fantastic, the set is fantastic. I can't give spoilers, I'm not going to give spoilers, but there's a part in the show that blew my mind with what happened, like, with the set. Absolutely incredible, absolutely incredible, absolutely loved it. It just, there we go again. It just blew my mind, essentially. It's just absolutely incredible, and I'm now looking up tickets to see it again, quite frankly, because it was just so good. It was so good, and I've pre-ordered the album and everything. I'm just so good. If you have the chance to see Cinderella, go and see it. Apart from that, you will have seen that I also went to Waterstones, specifically the one on Piccadilly Circus, which is Europe's largest Waterstones, and I picked up a grand total of no books. I was expecting to pick up some, but there was nothing really in there that I was really excited about. There's a couple of books that I was like, oh, that is on my wish list, but it wasn't something that I was desperate for. So I decided to not pick them up, because I want to buy books mainly because I'm really desperate for them. Because my TBR is really big already. I don't want to buy stuff because I'm like, oh, I am interested in that. I'd much rather buy stuff that I'm really excited for. And then everything else I saw in there was stuff that, like, I saw Champions by Eve Ewing, which is something I am really wanting, but A, I need to read the other Champions books I owned first, and B, I also need to, like, buy it on Kindle because I've got the rest of them on Kindle, so I can't buy it in physical format. So, well, I could, but then it would have been mismatched and it would have annoyed me, so besides the point. So I didn't pick up anything there, but we had a really good time. I would also recommend that if you do go see Cinderella, go to Donut Time, which is like 2 minutes down the road. Not even that, because their donuts are genuinely the nicest thing I've ever tasted. Genuinely the nicest thing I've ever tasted. But now with that said, I need to continue on reading this book, which is All the Ever Afters. I am enjoying this so far, but at the moment there's no fantasy elements to it. At the moment this is just purely historical fiction, which I'm actually enjoying. It's not what I was expecting. I was hoping for a bit more fairy tale, but I've got to admit I am still enjoying like this backstory to the wicked stepmother and things like this. It is very interesting, so I'm going to carry on reading it, and hopefully I've only got about 180 pages left. I'm hopefully going to finish this bit today because I am finding it a reasonably quick read, so fingers crossed I can finish it today. So let's get in with it. So I'm about halfway through now and I'm on chapter 13, and I've just got to the explanation as to why the stepsisters are known as the ugly stepsisters. And I think that's a really interesting way of doing it, and sort of leaning on the fact that racism and one scar on the darker skinned sister is seen as like she's like part of the devil, like she's daughter of the devil and a witch and stuff like this, so that's why she's considered ugly, whereas the other sister is marked by pox scars and so is seen as the ugly stepsister as well. I find that a really interesting sort of take on it. So they're not like so it's more like people's prejudices are making them the ugly stepsisters instead of it being more like them actually being ugly. So I quite enjoy that, I've got to admit. But at the moment I'm about halfway through now, so I'm getting there, if slowly, but I am quite enjoying it so far in terms of like how it's unfolding the story of Cinderella, though I do kind of wish it move along to the actual Cinderella bit because that's the bit I'm mainly interested in, but at the same time this is about stepmother, so I get it, but slightly mixed feelings on that because I'm used to magic and things happening, and like things are happening but it's more real world things. Missing the magic essentially. I wanted magic from this and there isn't any so far, but we'll see what happens going forward. So I've just got to where Agnes, who is the stepmother, has married Ella's father, and she's sort of been raising Ella for the last 8 years and everything, and we're getting a lot of talk about Ella, and obviously we are because it's Cinderella retelling. But the more I read, the more I'm sitting here going, is Ella autistic? Because a lot of Ella's traits, in the sense that she likes to sort things by size and colour and things like this, and she has an attachment to like buttons of different colours and different sizes. She doesn't take change well. She's very much stuck in her routines and her ways and stuff like this, and I'm like, that's ringing all of the autism bells for me. I don't know if that's what the author intended, but that is definitely where I'm seeing this book going at the moment. I mean, I doubt we'll get any sort of confirmation on that on page because this is set in a time when autism wasn't named, so I doubt that we'll get that. But at the same time I'm sitting there going, is she autistic? Because I genuinely think she is. So I have just finished All the Ever Afters and I reasonably enjoyed this book. I've got to admit I would have liked it to sort of maybe follow the more fantastical elements of it with like the fairy godmother and things like this, but I still did reasonably enjoy it. This is focusing more on obviously the stepmother of Cinderella and her story, which was very interesting to read. I've got to admit I was not expecting half of it to happen. I did enjoy sort of her childhood and how she sort of pulled herself up all the time and like tried to make the best life for herself and her daughters and things like this, and sort of her relationship with Cinderella and how she views Cinderella. I really enjoyed those types of bits. It was a reasonably interesting read, I've got to admit. There were a few things I wasn't entirely happy with, like the fact that Cinderella is clearly autistic and they never actually mention it, and there's a couple of moments of sort of slight ableism throughout this book, which is very annoying, but Other than that, I did really enjoy it. It also comes with some trigger warnings, those being period typical racism, period typical ideas about women and things like this. You've also got heavy mentions of religion and like premarital sex and things like this. You've got pregnancy, loss of a child, loss of both parents. What else is there? There's a lot of things in here. You've got major illness, death of a child, like I said, pregnancy, mentions of miscarriage, abuse. You've also got mentions of like child abuse on occasion as well, which is very much the idea that these children get cuffed around the head quite often. There's one moment of spousal abuse as well, mentions of an illness like dementia as well, general stuff like this. I did really enjoy this though in my own way, and I'm going to give it 4 stars. And that is the end of my Cinderella reading vlog. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below with your Cinderella retellings. I'd love to find some more because I did reasonably enjoy this and I do want to expand my retelling repertoire. So tell me down below your favourites. I'd love to know. I'll also leave a link down below to all my social media if you want to check it out, including to the Comic Book Sanctum, which is my website dedicated to Marvel Comics. And if you want to see any more of my videos, please click subscribe here. And over here will be the link to my previous video. But until next time everyone, bye!